I'm Rebecca from History, Myths and Legends, and this is just a really short recording on interpreting information that we look at that is from the past. So this is in particular when we look at research that is extremely old. It doesn't apply necessarily as much to modern documentation. It's more of a sort of older documentation issue. So when we are reading about something that happened a long time ago, it's important to look at how the person who wrote that piece of information perceived the situation. So for example, we have lots of Roman accounts of how British people lived during the Iron Age and into the Roman period. And the Romans who wrote this were perceiving how British people lived based on their own lifestyles. So they described British people as savage. They're savages. They described pagans as barbarians. And they got that information based on what they thought civilized was. So quite often some of these writers were based in Rome, where they had beautiful stone buildings. They had a very orderly society. There were lots of rules and governance. And they are looking at a group of people who still lived in huts. And were clothed differently, and they lived very different. Their social interactions were extremely different. So the British people weren't savages, but the Romans have written that they were, because that's how they perceived them. And the Romans were a worldwide giant. They had, they wanted to come across as very important and authoritarian. And so they wrote in a way that made these belittled, savage British people. So we have to bear in mind that those documents were written based on their perception of what they felt civilized was. And as time has gone on, we have documents in English, in Old English, and English has changed over time, and we need to look at how those were translated into modern English, and some of the words might not be 100% accurate. So we have to look at it and kind of sometimes make a little bit of our own judgment on what the meaning was behind those words. And finally, the documents that were written were only based on the knowledge at the time. So I've previously spoken about Boudica and Boudicca, and people will put forward documentations, even in the last century, around what they thought had happened, when actually it's based on the science at the time. Science is completely moving all the time, and we know things now from a historical, archaeological and scientific point of view that we didn't know in the 1900s. So it changes all the time. So double check the information, double check the context of the time it was written and the perception of the person who wrote it and their influences. I hope this helps, and have a lovely day. Thank you. Bye.